Everyone. Welcome to the Centennial in Action and Campaign Fundraiser. Thank you for your donation and for joining us for this special screening and panel discussion of After the March. My name is Margaret Doyle, one half of Much Ado Entertainment. We are so thrilled to have Sergeant Major Claudette Williams with us tonight. Claudette is running for the Pennsylvania State House in the 176th District, and we are proudly hosting this fundraiser in honor of the many marginalized Black women who fought for the vote 100 years ago and inspired our film. Recent headlines remind us that there is so much work to be done to realize the concept of equality in our union. And now I'll hand this off to my partner and one of the film's directors and writers, Amy Kirsten.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Margaret, so much. I miss you dearly. It's so nice to see your face. We are across the country from each other, but we're so thrilled to be together tonight and to have all of you here with us. So, a while ago, I started to look at all the grassroots campaigns across the country, and I was inspired how they felt a lot like indie film production. Our only access to those who can support us are one-to-one communication. This person knows this person knows this person, and they change hearts and minds. And so I really wanted to use this indie film that we made with just a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to support a candidate and to do it in honor of all the Black suffragists who inspired our film. So that's why you're here tonight. So after the screening, we will be doing a talk back with the candidate, very exciting, and then also with the producer. So we hope you'll stay and join us for that. In order to give you the best viewing experience of our film After the March, I actually have embedded the film below on the website. You'll see down there, it's asking you for a password. The film is 10 minutes long. So I'm actually gonna we're gonna pause this feed so you can go down there and watch After the March with the best case scenario, audio and playback, so you can really enjoy the film, and then come and join us back up here in this box to begin our talk back. So there will be no sound coming from this upper box. It'll just be coming from down there on the Vimeo. And without further ado, the password to watch our film, thanks, Margaret, I'll take you out of the screen for now. Without further ado, the password to watch our film is 1965, which was the year the Voting Rights Act was passed. And many more people who should have been allowed to vote with the 19th Amendment were allowed to. So that's the password, 1965, enter it down below. We're gonna play a little slideshow up here in the meantime, and we hope you'll come back and join us as soon as the film finishes. Thank you and enjoy After the March. I'm on mute. Hi, everyone. I hope you had a chance to watch the film. If for some reason you were unable to technically view it and you would still like to see it, we'd love to share it with you, especially before this big election. So send me an email and I'll make sure you have a private link to watch the film if you were unable to watch along with us. And now I'm going to bring on my co-producer and a truly inspirational woman who has taught me so much this year and taught me how I can pursue allyship as a creator and a filmmaker, who'll be moderating our discussion with Claudette, and that is Joy Donnell. Welcome, Joy. All right. Are you there, Joy? Hopefully she's there soon. I see her. Give us 1 second. There's Joy. I can hear you. Wonderful.
Okay.
Miracle. I have to tell you, people, if you want to stress yourself out even more in 2020, host a live stream. That will do it. But I'm so happy I'm doing this and thrilled you're all here with us. Joy is the founder of the Center for Intersectional Media and Entertainment, along with 2 other women who have been hugely inspirational for me. CME is their website. What is the URL, Joy? It's cme.us, I think?
CME.us, so CIME.us.
So I encourage you to go check them out, their workshops and their classes. And Joy, you know, I came to you wanting to make this film, knowing that we had an original draft from our co-writer, Donnell, that was on its journey to being in the right place, you know, an incredible idea, but we were not sure if we as storytellers were ready to tell the story and do justice. And you were so kind and incredible. I think you said, I see your intention. I want to help you make this. And so you really helped us, you know, examine our own gaze, if you will, our own gaze. You know, you always say, we learn how to tell stories from the stories we've been told. And so we really took a minute with your advice and your guidance as a producer to check in on the movies that may not have gotten stories like this right, like The Help, for example, or, you know, even Hidden Figures. And I just thank you so much. Do you want to speak about that at all? While we're waiting for Claudette to hop on with us, I'd love to hear the audience just talk about your work a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, Amy, thank you for coordinating all of this and making this magic happen in this insane environment that we're in. You know, and who knew that when we first started talking about this project, that this would be where we are right now in this moment of, you know, in time. You know, we were basically looking at it as, oh, okay, the 100-year anniversary is coming up, you know, suffrage. And we know that it was, you know, legal for women to vote, but it still ended up not being all women voting. And, you know, you talked to me about the story and what you wanted to do. And, you know, we kind of looked at, okay, this is where it is, and we know where we're going. And it's not necessarily about trying to get everything perfect. You know, like one of the things that I think a lot of storytellers are feeling hyper pressurized about is that because so many things were told in such a narrow way leading up to this point, we feel like we have to really get everything super, super perfect. But that takes time. It takes time to course correct. And we've inherited so many just horrendous tropes. Most of the tropes that we have actually in our narrative arts right now, I would be perfectly happy to ball them up, throw them in the trash, and set them on fire. Okay. I mean, I have a laundry list of tropes that I just cannot stand anymore. And new archetypes that, you know, we really want to create with completely different tropes. And I think that was one of the things that we found with After the March and telling the story, is that we were actually looking at not just creating new tropes, not just telling a story a different way and reimagining a historical moment that, you know, didn't happen, but what if we could have a conversation about how things could have gone? And we weren't looking at the archetypes that we knew already, right? Like when you actually look at creating new tropes, you create new archetypes, you create new types of characters. And that is a very exciting space to be in and a very nerve-wracking space to be in. And that's the space that we found ourselves in, you know.
Yes, I second that. It was like, I'm scared I will make a mistake doing this, but I'll never forgive myself if I don't give my heart and soul to trying to do it better or to do it right. And I was like, and may I take the risk and fail, having still tried to do, and Daniel feels the same way. You'll meet him in a bit about, we just really wanted to tell this story and wanted to see it happen. And, knowing full well we might fail, but at least we did some good along the way.
And that's the thing, you have to start where you are, right? And so I just really loved the fact that you took a look at everything and said, you know what, I want to actually expand the collaborative process and bring more people to the, into the room and actually like get more angles on how to look at everything. And I think that that's really where we are right now as storytellers. There's been a long tradition of people feeling like they had to helm something by themselves. They had to do something in a certain way and own that space in order to be able to, get the recognition, the accolades that we want. But I think that as we've been, progressing more into intersectional storytelling, not just looking at the way the stories have been, but looking at characters in a different way and all the nuanced experience of characters that they bring to the table, we're finding that collaboration is actually a gorgeous new frontier to be in. And if we embrace it, in the ways that really get us excited on an imaginative and creative level. And I think that's where we ended up. So, I'm just really happy every time, we share it with someone, I get back really amazing comments from people that even I wasn't expecting.
Me neither.
I don't know if you've experienced that, but it's like it's not these just shallow, like, oh, that was nice. That was, they start to go in and be like, oh my gosh, like I haven't seen a conversation like this. I haven't seen a moment like this. And there were stills that I know, like you and Tiffany would talk about, that really like got people that they weren't expecting, because it wasn't this like power over, or it was really like a leveling of the playing field in some of the visuals. So
I love that. Yeah, actually, while I have you here, Claudette will be joining us in just a few moments, ladies and gentlemen. She has another event going on right now because she's very busy and doing great.
Busy woman, doing amazing
but some people say to me, there's something going around, especially on some of the social media things of, if you are pursuing allyship in this time, it almost can be an insult to a person of color, a BIPOC person, saying, would you explain this to me? Would you help me be better? You know what I mean? And I was like, there's a right and wrong way to seek out guidance from people who represent the community you're trying to find allyship with. And I feel like a lot of people might be curious to hear you talk about that. The wrong way, asking of your time, asking of this, and then educate yourself, and then when to seek partnerships. If you want to talk about that at all, I'll do a quick check-in with Claudette.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. I am not in the business of race explaining, and it gets really tiring and frustrating when people expect that from you. I don't lean into that expectation, and I think that I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of people that I know are kind of in that same space. They don't really want to be asked, oh, can you sit down with us and like explain your community to us? It's like, no, but I'm going to talk to you about experience, and journey. And if we want to especially talk about character development, sit down to actually like develop characters. And I think that, a lot of things boil down to the ask and the approach, and the intention needs to be phrased with the same kind of heart space, that the approach needs to come from that. And that is, I think, sometimes what people don't necessarily lean to or get around. And if you approach people to collaborate with you, I think that it's important to approach them to collaborate, and that to make it clear that you want them to actually be involved in the project with you. You want their insight. You want to actually hold space take accountability where accountability is needed, and not speak over, but actually, like, listen and learn and receive and work together. And when that becomes clear, I think that puts people at ease, regardless of what their background is, and regardless really what the project is, and regardless of really what we're talking about. Everybody wants to be seen and heard and respected. And the way that some people approach things, it doesn't come across as respect. So I think that's some of where things get a little bit difficult. You heard Amy mention earlier that I co-founded a Center for Intersectional Media and Entertainment. And intersectional might not be a word that you're familiar with, or intersectionality might not be a word that you're familiar with. But we love it so much and believe in it so much that we actually put it in the name of our company, even though we abbreviate it to CIME, and we pronounce that CME. But that's the whole point of it for us. Intersectionality is about actually looking at someone and recognizing that there is not just one thing that has factored into their life and their journey, their experience, how they see the world and how they experience the world, that there's actually layers of experience, and different people with different backgrounds have different layers of experience. And a lot of things have boiled down to, in our country and around the world, the body. What body you occupy, what the classism, the classifications, the class restrictions are to be perceived on a societal level around that body. And therefore, what spaces and places people believe your body can occupy, and which spaces and places people believe your body cannot occupy. And intersectional work looks at all of those factors and strives to actually really bring them into account, especially where media entertainment is concerned, to bring that into character development and create deeper, richer, more nuanced characters who are not just showing up on screen to be positioned as some sort of abnormality to a human being, what a human being is thought to be, but actually are allowed to occupy space exactly as they are, and are seen and celebrated in that way. And so it's a very important distinction in our storytelling. And one of the things we found too, where media entertainment is concerned, is that, there's kind of been this idea that, okay, we want more diversity and inclusion, right? So we will just take out this character, the way the body looks, and we'll swap into different body, different look, different ethnicity, different race, the character, and then boom, check that box. Okay, diversity and inclusion achieved, right? But it's really not that simple, because one of the things that, Amy and I were mentioning at the beginning is that when you actually change the character, change the body that the character occupies in society, it's a different experience. And a lot of times what we're looking at is that the kind of tropes, the storytelling, the elements, the plot development, how the character is treated, we thought as before, of being right for that character, changes. You can't use the same archetype. You have a completely different archetype. So that is, like the work that we're doing, and that's what we strive to do with After the March. Oh,
there, I'm
wait.
unmuted. Hi.
Now I
Thank
see you.
you
Okay.
so much, Joy. And that is like just a taste of the kind of work they're doing. I cannot speak enough about their workshops. If you're working in the corporate sphere, you're working in media at all, they will just give you some confidence to move forward in your pursuit of allyship that I think some of us didn't feel like we had at the beginning of 2020. And I'm just so grateful. Well, Claudette's very close. Her campaign manager is texting me, so I feel very important, by the way, everyone. Anyway, so she's coming off another Zoom shortly. But in the meantime, we wanted to have our cast here tonight to join in the celebration. And our two female leads, Callie, who played Alice Paul, is shooting something else as we speak. Very talented actress that she is. So she wishes us all well and says thank you for watching the film. And then Mary, who played our central character, is currently out of the country and has two members of her family ill with COVID as we speak. And so I was so sad that she couldn't join us, but she did a previous talk back And it's such a delight to meet her out of character. So I thought I would play that video for you guys, just a quick snippet, as Claudette hops on over to our sphere. So enjoy meeting Mary, who played Mary in After the March. Total coincidence of name, because she's just a really special person, and we wanted to share her with you. So stand by while I cue that up. Thank you, Joy. You can take a break.
Of course.
It's important that we deal with them, that we deal with them with honesty, and that we deal with them with care.
I'm just going to cue this up again in case the audio didn't play, everybody. Thank you for bearing with me. She's worth hearing. I love her voice.
Mary, I want to get your perspective here. What's the challenge of shooting it all in one setting?
That was really, it was very inspiring for me. It was this role as Mary. I found it very interesting, and Amy helped me so much with in that film. They are the sexism, the racial discrimination. They are very actual today, and we just can't play it down anymore. Mm-hmm. They're there. They're staring us in the face, and it's important that we deal with them. That we deal with them with honesty, and that we deal with them with care. I'm reminded of a quote by James Baldwin. He said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until we face it." And it's staring us in the face now. It's been staring us in the face for 2,000 years.
Mary's very modest, and she hasn't mentioned this yet, but she's also a professional singer as well as an actor. And I love the sound of her voice, and I'm still waiting. Maybe we can persuade her to sing one day for us. But yeah, we were, Amy and I were both in agreement straight away that we wanted to cast Mary. And of course, as you say, Mary, the name, the fact that you had the same name, and that so many great Black suffragists had that same name, Mary, which is why we chose the name. Was perhaps a sign from the beyond.
Yeah.
And Mary, how did we get to hear your beautiful voice?
Oh, to smile when you're happy, to smile when you're sad. It's so good.
I think that's the perfect place to.
That's Mahalia Jackson, one of my favorite singers.
Oh, she is so missed tonight. Anyway, let me get my mic back on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Claudette is coming over in just a few seconds. Thank you all for your patience. A little technical thing, if you do want to post any questions for the rest of the Q&A, if you click on the YouTube logo in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, it'll take you actually to this live feed directly on YouTube. And if you post questions there, we can see them and address them in our talkback. So feel free to do that. Again, just give us a few more minutes. I know she's logging over. I will be right back. Okay, I'm here again. Hello. All right, so I'm going to bring back on Joy and also add our guest of honor, Sergeant Major Claudette Williams, adding Joy back in now. And here's Claudette. And let me just stop screen sharing. All right, ladies, take it away. I am so honored and thrilled to have you both here.
Hi again, everyone. And hi, Claudette. We have a very special guest with us. And I'm going to do a brief intro. So Claudette Williams is a mother, the first woman of color to be elected president of the Mount Pocono Borough Council, a police commissioner, chair of the Monroe County Democratic Committee, and that's not enough, the 30-year U.S. Army Sergeant Major, now retired. She was born in the beautiful island of Jamaica, one of my favorite places. I got married in Jamaica, and immigrated to Brooklyn, New York at an early age. And then she enlisted in the U.S. Army Reserve to serve her country. She moved from New York to Mount Pocono, Pennsylvania in 1998. And in 2003, she was called into active duty to support Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. And now Claudette is running as a Democrat for Pennsylvania State House in the 176th district, serving Monroe County. And she is here with us tonight, a very busy woman who took the time to sit down and speak with us. Please welcome Claudette Williams. Claudette, thank you so much for being here on this Sunday.
Thank you very much, Joy, for having me. It is my pleasure to be here.
I'm going to go ahead and jump into something that, I'm sure you've answered a couple of times while you've been on the political trail. But for those on here that are meeting you for the first time, and you all, again, if you have questions, you can go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that to go ahead and ask your questions to Claudette while she's here with us. But we see that, you've been serving your country for decades now. And you survived Iraq. And here you are doing more politically for America and for your state. We're kind of looking, a lot of us are looking at the political atmosphere right now, and it's traumatic almost. Why do this? Why run now? Why run for state representation?
Joy, some people have always asked me, oh, this is something that you dream of doing. And I told them, I said, no, this is not something I dreamed of doing. This was something that actually just fell into my lap, like hit me on the head. I came home and I went to my borough council. This is how it all started, from the borough council level. I came home and I went to my borough council. I went to a meeting. And when I look at, just coming back home and looking at my community, the diversity of my community, how it had changed, and not seeing any representation of the community at the leadership. And so this is how I first got involved. But while at that level, good leadership, people are drawn to good leadership. Honest leaders, they're drawn to you. So issues would happen and people would come to me with those issues. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? But those were not issues that could be handled at local borough level. It needs, as a state level, action is needed. And so as a leadership, you think about, how can I help my community? It's all about servant leadership for me. After making that sacrifice and serving my country and coming back home, and I'm seeing what's going on, I realized that I had to make a decision at one point, and I'll share a story with you about leaving my children and going back to Kuwait when I came home in R&R. And that was a sacrifice, and that was a freedom that I told myself in the beginning, I am fighting for. What I'm doing is for the freedom of my children and my grandchildren. So coming back home and seeing that the pay scale of a minimum wage in Pennsylvania of $7.25 an hour, people without health care, those are all considered freedom for me. So I realized that the freedom that I fought for was not here. It was missing. And so the only way to continue to fight for that freedom is to be that voice in Harrisburg, to be a voice with those individuals that know what it is for the working men and women, those families, and to make sure that we can get what is needed for a community. And that is why I am running for the House in Pennsylvania.
So, you mentioned healthcare being one of the issues that you're running on. You mentioned the taxes and things like that, and I've looked at your platform, and I hope that you'll share a little bit more with people who are attending now. You're talking not just about wages, right? Like you're talking also about property taxes and education. You're talking about the environment. Why are these issues pertinent to you right now? And why are they pertinent to Pennsylvania and Harrisburg in particular?
Well, if you look at where I am in my district, the 176 district, we're very rural. So people are coming into Pennsylvania, into the Poconos, the tourist area, because of our environment. So we're talking about clean water, clean air, having developers come in. We want that, but we can't compromise our environment, toxic environment. We can't bring those things into our environment. So people are concerned with those things. And so therefore, to make sure that we have the voices that will make sure they're voting for the environment. I moved here because my kids, I know, especially my son, love the outdoor. And we want to maintain that environment, that outdoor environment, clean environment. That is one of the things. We talk about property taxes. People are losing their homes in Pennsylvania because of the property taxes, more so the school taxes, which is the biggest part of their whole tax pieces. And so therefore, legislators have been running years after year after year after year on property tax elimination. Well, if you've been in Harrisburg for 10 years or 8 years or 12 years, and you're running on the same ticket, property tax elimination, why is it that whenever it's presented itself in Harrisburg on the table and you are the majority, why is it that you push it off to the side? And then you come back to your community and you said, oh, we will work towards property taxes. So you're giving people empty promises. When I served my country, I didn't say, oh, I might serve my country. I went and served my country. I tied up my boots and I said goodbye to my children. And I went and served my country, and making sure that my soldiers that were on the battlefield as a leader, that they have someone they can depend on, and they can believe in me, that I am going to take care of them and their family back home. So you can't continue to give your votes to those who say we're going to have property tax relief. Your health care will be okay. When you vote against health care, you vote against minimum wage increase. You vote against the property taxes. So this is a time that we want to know. These are the things that are affecting the people in our community. We have commuters that are going into New York because the job paying $7.25 an hour is not the right thing. It can't help them with their family. So they're commuters. More than 4,000 people are commuting to New York. How are you helping the people in our community? This is one of the reasons why you can hear I am passionate about what I'm doing. And I intend to make sure that the people have a voice in Harrisburg. And I tell people, hold me accountable. We're not holding our legislators that we have in office right now from Monroe County accountable. And this is why they're stepping in.
It feels like a lot of times, too, we almost approach it like they're doing us a favor when they do their job, right? I'm always so shocked by that. I'm like, no, these are elected representatives. They are supposed to do their job. And so much of what you're describing is same things that people are experiencing right here in LA, where I am, in Los Angeles, California, that people are experiencing around Atlanta, Georgia, near where I grew up. Like we are hearing these stories, like really across the nation. But then when we a lot of times turn to our news, for instance, just the media atmosphere politically, so much of the oxygen of our political awareness and attention goes toward that national level, right? Yes. Like it's all about the presidency, it's all about the Congress and the Senate, it's all about SCOTUS, right? And we're not looking a lot of times at the local level. Some voters don't even think about their local leadership. They don't read that book when it comes to the House, that they're not even aware of what the down ballot is, it is, so to speak. So why do these local elections matter so much? And not just the voting, but also donating in down ballot. Why is this important right now in this political atmosphere that we're in?
Okay, so when I've met a lot of voters or residents that say, I don't get involved in politics. And I just simply asked, I said, oh, did you by any chance take your garbage out this week? Oh, yeah. Oh, did the garbage truck come this week? Oh yeah, they come regularly. Well, those are your elected officials. This is what we do. We sign those contracts, we get these agreements together. So people need to realize that when you said I don't get involved in politics, your entire life is politics. Everything about is politics. But people just look at the national level and don't realize, but when they have the problem at the lower level, the water is, the roads are not done, infrastructure is an issue, water issues, then they reach out to the local elected officials, and this is when they want things to be done. But then you will have someone that will vote straight ticket up, they'll vote at the presidential election, and then they'll switch off and then vote for someone else. So even though, say for instance, Joe Biden is poll is good in my area, and you'll say, oh yeah, Claudette will win, right? Not necessarily so. They will vote for Joe Biden and then they go off. And so that lower ticket, they don't consider how important that lower ticket is to their everyday life versus that national piece of it. And go ahead, I'm sorry, Joy.
I was just saying, yes.
Yeah. And then for us to run, they don't think about, like, someone will say, oh, I donated here. Oh, sorry, I don't have anything for you. But we need that donation, because this is how we have, like my opponent, I'm running against a rich individual who's that 1%. Okay. So he can do whatever he needs, commercial, mailers, without asking for a donation. I honestly cannot win a race. I cannot do anything unless I have supporters and I ask for donation and people are able to support this race. Believing in the fact that we can flip Pennsylvania. We need 9 seats to flip Pennsylvania, to no longer be the minority, but the majority, so we can get things done. 9 seats. But the only way we can do that is by donations, funding, where they can help us to have those mailers out, to be able to educate our voters, show those voters what the next leadership looks like. And so they don't have to settle. People are settling for who they have because he's a nice guy or she's a nice girl. Well, I don't want to be a nice guy, nurse girl. Yes, I'm going to be those things, but I want to be able to do the job that the voters send me to Harrisburg to do. I don't get to Harrisburg by my own, will or snapping my finger. Voters believe in you. They come out, they cast their vote. When they cast their vote for you, it is your duty to make sure that when you go to Harrisburg, you're representing those people, not the corporation, but the people in your district.
Yeah, so this is kind of a conversation of the big picture, but life a lot of times is actually happening in the small picture. Right.
Yeah.
And so like the small picture, like you were saying, that's your local representation. Those are your local representatives. You don't have to look to the national Congress level. They're not really going to be deciding when your garbage is getting picked up. That is your actual local representation, right? They're not going to be affecting if your property taxes are able to go down, or if you're able to change the way that the property taxes work so that children have access to education, regardless of the property taxes situation. That is your local representation. So I guess, I think one of the things that 2020 has been showing us is that a lot of things that we thought didn't matter, or the things that we were trying to ignore, we can't ignore. It seems like every single thing is important, and especially when it has been resulting in inequity in our lives, and equity on the most fundamental levels. And here we are. We have, the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of justice. But liberty isn't a guarantee. It usually has to be fought for, claimed, and then once claimed, you have to keep fighting for it and making sure that it's protected, right? One of the reasons why you hear it, we did a movie called After the March. It's talking about women's suffrage. Women did not have the right to vote. It took Ida B. Wells and Delta Sigma Theta and Alice Paul and Susan B. Anthony to fight for, and countless others, women of all races, to fight for women's right to vote, and then for all women's right to vote on top of that. Because again, it was the Voting Rights Act that actually opened it up for a lot of women of color to be able to vote, Black women in particular, and then eventually Latinas. And we're, now here at this moment where here is, Kamala Harris, the first person of her kind, let alone woman, to be running at a vice presidential ticket. you have already broken so many barriers. As I mentioned, you were the first of the woman of color to some of your positions, first the Black woman to be able to have these positions and represent people. And then we're getting to that, some voters are looking at the ballot and they see the future. But then there are some voters that are looking at everything, the politics, especially what's been going on the national level, and just the indignity that we have been seeing within our politics. And they're just dusted and disgusted and dismayed. And they're leaning into apathy as their strategy, right? They're just bowing out, feeling like they'd rather not choose anyone at all. They'd rather not participate in the political process. They just want to be free and clear of it and just take their mind away from it. For those voters that have been feeling completely disempowered or just so disenchanted that they are choosing to not do anything, what do you have to say to them about voting, their voice in general, and then especially in relation to your election?
What I'm saying to those voters is not to give up. I am spreading hope. Not to give up. Come out, cast your vote. But look at your life and ask yourself the question, in the last 6 years or 8 years, has anything changed in your life with your legislator? And I always tell people, you have a choice. Your vote is your choice. If you vote for someone and you have that person in office and nothing has changed in the last 6 years, cast your vote for someone else. Look for a change somewhere else. And if you vote for me and then there's no changes, every 2 years is a race. So you have the choice to make in every 2 years. The choice is really yours. So what is going on at the national level and it's trickling down? Get new leadership. If those people that are at the lower level are standing with what's happening at the national level, then you're not going to get anything different. So you have to choose new leadership. I mean, you look at someone who's very much involved in the community, who is constantly giving back to the community. Think about those individuals. What can they bring to the table? But even with all that being said, and everything that's happening, we still have our struggles. There's changes that are going on, but we still have our struggles. I mean, I am the Borough Council president, and I was about a little more than a month ago, I made a question at the Borough Council, and I was addressed, "Hey, you Missy." I was like, "Who do you think you are?" I was told, "Go back to where you came from." Those are the things, the kind of abuse that I receive. If you look at the demographics of my district, those are the kind of abuse that I receive. But I'm not easily coward. I'm going to be running away because, I believe in what I'm doing and I believe that people need change. And I'm here, as I said before, it's servant leadership. It's about the servant leadership. That is what I'm bringing to the table. And it's about giving people hope. Giving people hope. Start looking in your small community how you can change things, one community at a time. Come together. Yesterday we had the Women's March, and my topic was about unity and equality. Come together. Let's start moving together. And when you start moving together we can do a lot more than we can do as an individual.
And I love that. And that, it kind of brings it to one of the last questions I want to ask you, which is about collaboration, right? The Pennsylvania is actually a very purple state in a lot of ways. So it seems like it's important to think about collaboration. And how do you go about actually being able to do those things where bipartisanship is required? How have you done that in the past? What's your approach?
My approach is to look at, instead of looking at an individual or looking at the party, look at the individuals who we are having a conversation with. Are they in for themselves or for business, or are they for the community? If we can have a conversation, and then at the end of that conversation, realizing that we're fighting for the same thing, for the common good, for mankind, then we're having that conversation. But when we have people that's talking about business and they're one track mind, there's no deviation. They don't see the unity part of it. Then that's when you realize that you're fighting an uphill battle. but really reaching out to different organizations in the community, the young men, the younger generation, reaching to those individuals and coming together. Town hall is a very, very important thing. That this is where you have conversation, where you can listen to each other, and then you know exactly the kind of leadership you need to put forward by listening to each other, and then making sure that you're presenting, whenever you speak and you're presenting, it's for everyone, whether it be Republican, Democrat, Independent, or whoever, but it's going to be for everyone holistically.
I love that. So, I mean, again, we are hearing local elections matter,
Yes.
right? Town halls are important. Holding leadership accountable is necessary, and everything counts, right? Every vote counts, and especially on your local level, every vote counts. This is not, the electoral college doesn't have anything to do with your local politics, so that your vote especially matters at the local level. And so, Claudette, I just want to thank you again for taking time to, talk to us, share your insight and your platform and what it matters to you and why you're doing what you're doing. And for those who especially are outside of Pennsylvania that are watching tonight and want to help you, how can they go about getting involved?
Okay, so they could visit my website, which is www.claudette4pa176.org. They could visit my website. They could donate. They could phone bank for us. They could text for us. We are going to be doing this straight up until 8 p.m. on November 3rd. We're not stopping. We have a program in place right now. It's called the CPP, which is Community Partnership Program. We're asking each individual to call just about 100, 25 people, 30 people. Constantly keep checking into those individuals. Did you cast your vote? Did you register to vote? Would you like a ride to the polling station? Just doing that community partnership and making sure that we get everybody on board and to move right into this. We're at home stretch, going into November 3rd. So come together. So phone banking, funds, the actual dollars, and texting, that all helps.
And wonderful. And I mean, we probably have a lot of independent filmmakers watching tonight, and they get it because, the same kind of outreach that you do independently for your project is very similar to, these kind of grassroots campaigns. And Amy mentioned that, early at the beginning of this, it is about that hand to hand, that it's not just money, like money. Yes, money, but also mouths, word of mouth is, the one of the other valuable currencies that people need to be able to actually effectively create change. So Claudette, thank you again for taking time with us. And also to everyone, has been a link that we were sharing to be able to get involved and donate to Claudette's campaign. But just thank you so much, everyone. Claudette Williams. Have a great evening and keep, I know you're very busy and important, so keep being out there on the trail.
Thank you very much, Joy. It's an absolute pleasure.
Oh, wait, Amy, we can't hear you yet. I can tell she's saying something fantastic. Oh, I think your mic is muted.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Remember
I
when
tell you, live production.
Out, do a live stream. Anyway, Claudette, thank you so much. We are so, so grateful. We're so thrilled you liked our film. We're so thrilled you wanted to be a part of it with us, and we are rooting for you all the way up through November 3rd. And she did mention also, we won't, November 6th is when we'll really know the results of the election. Right. So stand by, hold her in your good thoughts until then, and volunteer if you can, because I can't think of a better candidate. So thank you so, so much. I'll let you get back to the campaign trail. Thanks,
okay. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks. Bye-bye.
So now that I'm unmuted, everyone can hear me. Great. I'm going to add my fellow filmmakers. So this film was really produced with 4 people, myself and Joy, and then the original writer, the person who conceived the story, Daniel Newman, and also my co-director, Tiffany Murray. So I co-wrote the film with Daniel, who wrote the original script, and I co-directed the film with Tiffany. Let me bring them on now. And feel free to say hi, everybody. If anyone does have questions, you can email me if you're having a hard time commenting on YouTube, or you can also just comment on the actual YouTube thing. But you all have my email. Well, great. Well, I'm going to give Joy a break. I think everybody make sure they don't have the feed going, so we're not getting feedback. Maybe anyone getting feedback? Sorry. We're good at recording things in a studio and then editing them. Live streaming is new to us, and it makes us very nervous because we're used to having more control. So first of all, I want to cue up Daniel. Daniel had this idea. He is a historian and an up-and-coming filmmaker and screenwriter, and he came to me with this script about wanting to tell a more honest story about Alice Paul. So Daniel, could you just address a little bit some of the history in the film that we just saw and where the idea came from? Because I just think it's so cool to hear about the inception.
Sure. So last year I started reading about Alice Paul, and as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm from England. And interestingly enough, Alice Paul was involved in the suffragist movements in Britain as well as in America. So she came out here as while she was doing one of her many degrees, and she was arrested in London at a suffragist protest and was imprisoned and was force-fed in London. And then, of course, when she went back to America, the same thing happened to her there in Washington, D.C. So I thought it was interesting that she'd been involved with two separate suffragist movements, and that she'd learned a lot of her tactics, sort of political tactics, from Britain. And then I found out that Alice Paul, while she'd been organizing protests in America, had discriminated against women of color, had discouraged them from participating in the marches that she organized. And when she agreed to let them participate, she tried to segregate them. And that wasn't something I had originally been aware of. And I thought that that was something that lots of people perhaps aren't aware of about this great suffragist leader, and something that could be explored in a film. And that's, of course, when I got in touch with you, Amy, and we began developing this screenplay. And after we'd done about a billion drafts, then we spoke to Joy, and Joy helped us to craft a much more nuanced, balanced, and fair depiction of this interesting relationship between this woman of color who really did work in the prison where Alice Paul was force-fed, and well, the result is what you've just seen earlier.
Oh, wait, you're muted.
Sorry. Once again, I'm back. That was such an interesting challenge, that we knew we wanted to tell this story, but we knew we had to do it with care. And I think really expanding the Mary character and using sort of the historical fiction that a woman like her was likely in the prison cell with Alice Paul, and getting to imagine the conversation we wish that could have been had, you know. And I'm all about holding our heroes accountable. I love honoring Alice Paul for what she did. We wouldn't have the vote without her back then. But also, I want to hold her accountable so that we can even try to be better. So that's where I feel like once we got to Joy, we really found the, you know, making a hypocrite out of a hero moment that I think really carries the film forward and is one of my favorite pieces of dialogue that we got out of it. Tiffany, I now go to you. So basically, much like Grassroots Campaign, everybody who worked on this film, save maybe a very couple people, did it on volunteer basis. And Tiffany's a very busy cinematographer and director, and somehow agreed to help me do this out of the goodness of her heart. So Tiffany, do you just want to talk to us a little bit about your process? So Tiffany co-directed the film with me, and also was our director of photography. She was holding the camera, directing the lighting. So the look and the visual language of the film is Tiffany, and I'm so pleased with how it turned out.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when Amy came up to me with this idea, it was kind of a no-brainer. It was something, honestly, at first it was, are we allowed to tell this story? You know, like, it's a weird thing to go in as like two white females trying to tell this story, and so we had to check ourselves, and then with Joy's guidance, we really realized this is this is an important thing for us to do. And like with any project that I'm involved in, DPing or directing, I like to challenge myself and say, okay, how will this help me as a filmmaker and a storyteller? And what can I do to make myself better? And I think this was a good exploration in how do I tell stories that are not my own, but by doing research and reaching out to those people that can help guide us and teach us what these experiences were. And I think that in U.S. history especially, it's so common to look at everything through rose-colored glasses, and
Right.
to be able to really like check ourselves and do our own research to find out what is the truth was a really amazing part of this process.
I love that. Actually, we have a great question from Neil Samuels. We're asking about the challenges of the current environment as regards to white people telling and directing stories of people of color. And I have an interesting anecdote, and then everybody chime in. A challenge is that if you are aware of what's going on and your place in it, it can be scary as a filmmaker who wants to support people of color and tell these stories, while also not want to take up space that isn't ours. And Joy really, helped us realize, when it is your time, is first of all, always inviting somebody in of the community that you're working with. So if you want to screenwrite it, make sure your producer is a person of color. You know what I mean? If you want to be the writer, try to get a director that represents the community. So Daniel, as this was his idea for a film, knew immediately he wanted women to be the directing voice behind it. And then I knew as a writer that I wanted to make sure I had Joy guiding me in the dialogue. So pull in the advocates of the community you're trying to support, and you can still express yourself and take your role. Like this film says, story by Daniel Newman. He just made it with a bunch of women. So I think that's the important thing. And then Tiffany, there was a great moment on set where I was directing. I was, middle of the night. We shot this in 6 hours overnight in Burbank. And I was directing Mary, and then she did a take, and Tiffany pulled me aside and she was like, remember what Joy talked to us about? And she was like, that last take felt like, one of the tropes with like magical Negro spiritual, what is it? What is it, Joy?
Magical Negro.
Magical Negroism, right? Where we're using a character who is Black to then sort of heighten in a magical way the white character's experience. And Tiffany was so right. And I like checked myself and I was like, I take that note back, go back to the way you were doing it. Let's try it again. I want to make sure I don't miss this moment or fall into the traps of the other movies that I have seen. So I think that is how I would address that. Does anybody else want to jump in on that?
I'm pretty sure that my first 15 drafts of the screenplay had multiple instances of magical Negroism and all sorts of terrible tropes. But I think that's why it was such a great project to work on with the three of you, and of course all the other amazing crew and cast that were involved, because I learned so much in the process. And I think, as Joy was saying earlier, as long as you have the right intention, it's, you shouldn't be too afraid of making mistakes. You've got to jump in the deep end, and that's how you learn in the process. And I feel that this has been a great project for me in terms of expanding my understanding.
Yeah. So I think go ahead, Joy.
Well, I was going to say, but I think one of the main things is that people have to show up, right? Like it's not just about being in a safe space, it's about being in a brave space. And the brave space usually starts inside yourself. So you have to show up. And it doesn't surprise me, that still in 2020, so many things have the tired tropes that we've been seeing over and over and over again. A lot of it has to do with what Tiffany was saying earlier about the history that we learn, right? Like it's centered in a very particular way. And there isn't a lot of space in the educational process to ask why, right? If you don't get the space to dig deeper into certain things, you don't even see it. It doesn't get revealed because of the way that we go about talking about things, and America is not unique in its very complicated and problematic history. What is unique about America a lot of times is the way that it goes about dealing with it, right? We act like two things can't be true at the same time. We act like you can't love your country and still, like, want your country to do better than it's been doing. We act like you can't love your country and be honest about what your country's past has been and what its present actually is. We act like you cannot love your country and want to work with everybody to build a better future for the country and the world in general. But in my experience, in my world, in my mind, those two things are true, and I think that one of the really valuable things that came out of the experience is that, do you realize that a lot of it too, with telling stories, is looking at characters with empathy and compassion in a real way. Empathy and compassion, not pity. And I want to be very clear about that, because pity is a form of empathy, but it's not the form of empathy that gets you to compassion. And when you actually look at someone as a character with compassion, you want to strive to see them as the fullest human being possible, not just something that shows up in service to another character just to go ahead and develop out a plot the way that you have it in your mind, and I know that goes against so much of what we learned about storytelling, because we are supposed to look at things as just plot devices. But looking at these characters, the characters that we create as simple plot devices, is part of what's gotten us into a lot of these horrible tropes, like magical Negro and the immigrant that's just comic relief, and the suspicious transgender person that can't be trusted. That's what's gotten us into these horrible areas that we're in. Just looking at characters as plot devices and not actually treating them as compassion, and looking at the fact that our stories shape our beliefs and our beliefs shape our reality. So what we come to know and learn about certain groups of people through the stories that we tell, a lot of times have an institutional, societal, everyday level effect on our lives.
And I think so much of it, you don't learn until you dive in. I think that's really, so I'm getting a little feedback. Anyway, you don't learn until you dive in. So if you sit back overwhelmed, you're just sitting back. If you dive in overwhelmed, you will make mistakes and you will be so much greater on the other side of it. So I challenge everybody to write the character that they think they don't have the right to write, and then find somebody who represents that community and build that character with them, I think is really the long and short of it. Well, any closing remarks? Thank you all so much. I'm so thrilled we did this. We've raised money for Claudette, you guys. I think we're approaching almost $1,000, and I think we're going to keep pushing it. So if you do want to share this feed, it's all going to be available on this website. So anybody who wants to donate can still access this talkback and the film up until November 3rd. If they want to donate to Claudette's campaign. So please spread the word if you want to share this talk with anyone, or you missed a section and want to go back and watch it. Give me a couple hours and I'll update it with a video of this feed, and you'll still have access to watch the film. If you missed the password, it is the year the Voting Rights Act was passed, and that's 1965. So feel free to watch the film, and also please pass this along, and we want to just support her as much as we can. Our donation link will be up until November 3rd. Good luck, everyone. Stay safe out there, and thank you again so much for joining us. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.